guess we'll probably start with Black Adam first, huh?
We can, yeah. But I have some quick things I want to say. You know what I mean?
Oh,
You know what I'm saying?
oh, all right.
So I watched House of the Dragon.
Mm,
Unlike you, I watched it in its entirety.
not just the sex scenes,
No,
of which
and most of
all of them are disappointing. By the way, there's almost no
they
there's no
were
nudity there's no nudity in the show. Basically, like
pretty much, unless they're in a
yeah,
brothel, there's no nudity.
yeah. None of the main characters ever show any privy parts or anything. It's just erotic posing, which
There,
is all right because they're like attractive at least. Like they're nice to look at. Like their bodies, like they got some good lat spreads on the back. But
sure.
aside from that, like not
There
much of
there's just far too many birthing scenes.
it.
I don't need to constantly see women giving birth when half the time the baby doesn't even live, and one of the times the mom dies because they cut her open.
Mm,
Like, I don't need to see this shit. But I get why it's there. But no, the thing I'll say about the show is it is a good show in general terms. Like, it looks great. Like, like, honestly, like, I know they spent way less than Rings of Power, but the visuals are almost on par.
mm.
The biggest issue with the visuals is just some scenes are just way too dark. It's like the second to last episode of Game of Thrones, where like
Mm,
the battle at Winterfell or whatever, and like everything is just fucking like you can't see shit. You know,
yeah.
there's a couple scenes like that. The other issue, the the single most bad thing I guess I could say about the show is there's just no one to root for. Like, in Game of Thrones, you had like Jon Snow and Arya and like other characters you cared about, like Tyrion, and like a bunch of characters that like you could root for, and for large parts of the show, Daenerys, right?
Mm,
And I'm not saying you can't get there with this show because Game of Thrones did the same thing where you'd have like characters like Jamie Lannister who you're like, wow, this guy's a major douchebag, piece of shit. Everybody hates him. And then eventually you're like, you kind of root for him a little bit, you know?
yeah, when they dropped the ball in the last couple seasons, and
Yeah.
reverse all that character development and turn him into a huge piece of shit because he's just, this is who I've always been. Then he fucks off on a horse after fucking Brienne, which is something they've been setting up for like 6 seasons. Oh,
Yeah.
supposed to be him
But
breaking away from his sister finally, but nope.
but this
God
show
forbid.
this show has so many time jumps that like you get to see so much of these characters' lives,
Mm,
and like they're just all awful. Like there's one character who is like a good person pretty much, and like they're kind of just like on the side. Like they're not even a main part of the show that much.
yeah,
And like that person's kids, like for the most part, like are all like they seem like genuine people, but like everyone else, they're just awful. Their kids are awful. Everyone is just awful. Everyone's a terrible person, and the only person who like I actually like is Matt Smith's character,
yeah,
despite the fact that he's also just awful. Like,
yeah,
but it's Matt Smith, and he's really good, and his character, like, you can tell,
yeah.
like, there's something under there that, like similar to Jamie, like, he wants to do
Be
like
good.
genuinely the
Yeah,
right things for the people he loves, but like that also means doing bad things for the people you love, right?
yeah.
Um,
I think the problem, well, first let me put this out there. The reason for anyone who hasn't tuned in or is just tuning in or whatever ish is going on in your life right now, I don't watch House of the Dragons, or I refuse to right now, even though I'm not paying for HBO Max. My parents pay for HBO Max, and I just mooch off them like a fucking just horrible delinquent. But I was really upset because I think Game of Thrones, the first 5 seasons, is probably some of the best TV I've ever watched in my entire life. Like it's something, it's just it blows my socks off every time. Those first 3 seasons really are super intense. They just grab you and they pull you in. They don't let you go. And then they just completely drop the ball because the showrunners were wanting to go work on Star Wars. They didn't want to finish Game of Thrones. And it needed a couple more seasons. I think probably it needed to go up to 11 or 12 seasons to be 100% finished. And I think they could have taken it there if they really wanted to, and they didn't. And instead, they just kind of wrapped it all up in one stupid, shitty, awful, bad, not very good season. And it's just it made me so mad, and I'm really wounded. So I'm not gonna be. The only reason I joke about watching like House of Blood for the sex scenes, like House of Blood, like Fire and Blood, whatever the fuck, I don't know, for the sex scenes. But like to be honest, like I only watched like 2 sex scenes, and that was about it.
yeah,
Um, because like they're just like they're cool and stuff. You know, you see a great shot of Matt Smith's ass